Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about and demonstrating the newest release from Perspectium, which is the Europium release. My name is Craig McDonough. I will be your host for the webinar, and as always, I am joined by Paul Wynn, who will be diving into the technical detail of the release and demonstrating some of the new functionality to you. Now, you may recall that we started doing these webinars a while back, and we did them for these reasons. First of all, you told us that you wanted to know more about each release as it came out. And so we're going to make sure that we share that information with you. We will be conducting one of these webinars each release. We've done that so far since the Argon release. We'd encourage you to ask questions during the session. There is a Q&A panel on the side of your screen, and we'd encourage you to use that to ask any questions that you have. We will get to as many of those as we can during the webinar today. And just a reminder also that this session is being recorded, and we will send it to you at the end of the once we've sort of wrapped everything up today. So if you need to drop off partway through and you want to pick it back up again, or if you want to go back and listen to something, or you want to share the webinar with some of your colleagues, you can most certainly do that. And you expect that email from us with the webinar link within the next couple of days. You may also recall that we changed our release naming scheme to make it easier for people to remember which release they were on. This one is called Europium. And a very good question would be, what actually is Europium? Well, for a start, it's considered to be mildly toxic, and we're not talking about the release here, we're talking about the metal. The metal dust is considered to be a fire and explosion hazard, so not good so far. However, it gets better. So europium is also an element that produces red, white, and blue radiances in computer monitors and television screens, which means that you're probably looking at some europium right now. It's also used in energy-efficient light bulbs and anti-forgery marks on euro banknotes. But more importantly than any of that, it is, of course, the latest release from Perspectium. So let's get into it and take a look at the release themes for Europium. So to start off with, we're going to be talking about some new and enhanced endpoints. We usually add a few of these each release, and this one is no exception. So you'll hear about some new endpoints that you will be able to integrate with. We'll introduce the idea of service intelligence with AWS, Amazon Web Services. In fact, just last week, we were at the AWS reInvent conference in Las Vegas, talking to people there about these new capabilities, and people were pretty excited. So we're looking forward to sharing those with you. We'll also be covering off some new replication capabilities, so new things that you can do with what you already have. And then last but not least, we'll be talking about a new Salesforce application that we have created. But let's start off by taking a look at the first of these themes, which is, of course, around new and enhanced endpoints. And the first of these new endpoints we're going to talk about is for the Freshworks products. Freshworks is a company that started back in 2010 to deliver customer service solutions. Since that time, they've expanded their portfolio pretty dramatically, and now they've got offerings for IT support, marketing, sales, recruiting, and even website availability. Most of their customers are in the small to medium category, but they do have a few enterprise customers, and those customers need to be able to integrate their service management processes. In the Europium release, we are introducing support for the Freshservice and Freshdesk products. Freshservice is their IT support product, and Freshdesk is the original customer support tool. These new endpoints mean that customers using Freshdesk or Freshservice can now integrate with anything else in their Perspectium ecosystem, including other applications and service providers. Paul, anything you'd like to add to that?
It's kind of like what you mentioned, Craig. All the things that processes that people do now, integrating ServiceNow with Jira, Remedy, with Sharewell, et cetera, that we currently support. Freshservice, Freshdesk is now another endpoint that you can actually integrate similar processes, incident, tickets, etc.
Sounds great, and I know we're gonna actually see this in just a second. So we don't want to ruin too much of the surprise. The next endpoint though is one that you will almost certainly be familiar with. It's Splunk. Splunk captures, indexes, and correlates real-time data in a searchable repository from which it generates graphs, reports, alerts, dashboards, and visualizations. It's used for things like application management, security and compliance, as well as business and web analytics. And now it's a supported endpoint for Perspectium, meaning that you can send data from anywhere in your Perspectium ecosystem into Splunk. One customer asked us to build this specifically so that they could move ServiceNow incidents into Splunk. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. And as more customers start using this new endpoint, I'm confident that we'll see some other use cases develop.
So what you mentioned, Craig, it's the ability to get any data from anywhere in our ecosystem into Splunk, and then from there, you can do what you would want to do with it in Splunk, whether you're setting up monitoring of it or you're running your own reports, because Splunk does have a pretty good setup with Tableau, meaning that people use Tableau to run the reports against Splunk data. So that one customer you're referencing, they wanted to take all the incidents into Splunk, combine with other data they're actually aggregating into Splunk already, and be able to create their own Tableau reports off of that. So we provide this capability, for them to do this, and that's just one of the many use cases, as many people on this webinar know, that you can do with Splunk itself.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what people come up with here and what new use cases we hear about. Okay, and the last of the new endpoints we're going to talk about today is an enhanced endpoint for Sherwell. Of course, we've had a bidirectional Sherwell endpoint for a while now, but with this latest release, we're introducing the ability to pull bulk data from Sherwell and move it to other supported endpoints. Paul, anything you want to add to that one?
So I know most people are familiar with our ServiceNow and Salesforce applications. We have the capability of the bulk sharing feature out of those applications. Since we don't have a native Sherwell application, we wanted to be able to provide the ability to actually, share out bulk data from Sherwell, meaning that someone wants to share out all their incidents, kind of like an initial seeding of the other system, or they want to share out all their user records, their groups, locations, things of that nature. So we provided a new way for you to do that in Sherwell. We use what we call our query approach for those who are familiar with Remedy, because of the fact that Remedy and Sherwell to a point don't really have a way to just webhook or call into our cloud service all the data at once. This is a way for us to kind of query and grab and process, thousands of records at a time. That's what we kind of built here. So it's in a way, it's like our bulk share capability in our native applications, but without having the native app itself.
Very cool. All right. Well, I tell you what. Why don't we take a look at some of these new endpoints so that you can get a feel for what you might be able to do with them.
All right. So I'm gonna start off with Freshservice, and I'll use ServiceNow as an example. In this case, someone here is using ServiceNow. They're going to create a new incident. We'll assign it to someone, say something, the issue they're having. And once they submit this ticket, it's going to come over to to Freshservice. I'm using Freshservice as an example. And, for those who are familiar with ServiceNow, you know how we send data out for ServiceNow, but this will work with any of our endpoints that we support to send data out of. So we'll give this a second to get over to Freshservice. So as you see right here, the ticket came in on the Freshservice side. So on this side, if I'm the technician working on this side, I'm going to add a note, make it a public facing one to the person so I can see it. And that was a beep from Freshservice letting me know I entered something. So after we enter that, we'll give it a second to come over to this side. And as you can see right here, I responded because I'm logged in as myself on the other system. we'll keep you posted. So that's kind of the e-bonding back and forth nature between ServiceNow and Freshservice, and between any of our endpoints that we currently provide. So Freshservice, Freshdesk is a new endpoint that we can support to do as such. And in here, as you can see, we store the correlation ID, which is the ticket number on our side, 229. As you can see here, this is the number 229. So that's the internal number that Freshservice stores for their ticket, 229. Even though it says INC as the display value, but like we do with other things, we e-bond it. We keep the IDs on both sides in sync so that you know which ticket you're referring to, whether you're working in one system or the other system. So next one I'm going to show is for Splunk. So I already created a bulk share before, just to give it as an example. I'm going to go ahead and execute this bulk share again. In this case, I'm doing what the use case that our customer was looking for, which is to do incident records. I'm just going to share out 10,000 incident records right now. And then while those are being shared out, we'll give it a second so that it goes over to, those records are shared out to Splunk, or to our service, excuse me, our cloud service. Our cloud service is going to pick it up, and then it's actually going to send it to Splunk using Splunk's HTTP event collector option. The HTTP event collector option in Splunk is actually a way to, in a way, almost configure like an endpoint, like an API that you can call into Splunk to send data. So by configuring that, you are allowed to specify a URL, and you give it a token, and then basically saying this is where we're going to connect to send data. So we use that. We configure our service to do that, kind of like how we configure an endpoint, whether we have Jira, Freshservice, or et cetera, that people can connect to from our cloud service or from an on-premise repeater agent. But we have this service that's configured to talk to Splunk, and messages just start flowing right now. You can actually tag, for those familiar with Splunk, the source type. I've done a search for me. I made it to be source type equal to Perspectium. And let's query and search for this. And you'll see right here, this machine is set up to be UTC time. That's why it shows it 5:14, 9:14 Pacific time. And the records are in the system. And you can see all the fields are populated as we had the records in ServiceNow. And that's our ServiceNow to Splunk demo.
All right, so what we'll do next is go and give you a bit of an overview of the next theme, which covers some exciting new functionality which we've worked to develop with AWS. And so AWS, or Amazon Web Services, provides a highly reliable, scalable, low-cost infrastructure platform in the cloud that powers hundreds of thousands of businesses in 190 countries around the world. At Perspectium, we work with AWS to simplify and standardize the sharing of process and data from siloed business frameworks to discover and create compelling new business values for you, our customers. The combination of Amazon Web Services with Perspectium allows us to jointly deliver service intelligence. And service intelligence elevates service management. It uses on-demand technology to make it faster, smarter, and more automated. Whether you're using machine learning to automatically assign tickets, or intelligent routing to get work to the right place, or on-demand databases to consolidate data for analytics and compliance, the combination of Perspectium and AWS will get you there. Today, we are introducing these two new products, on-demand data analytics and intelligent incidents. And let's start off by taking a look at on-demand data analytics. This product can be launched directly from within the AWS Service Catalog, and it delivers an AWS data lake populated by data from ServiceNow, Salesforce, and Jira that can be used for analytics and/or governance. By joining data from these systems, you can now report on things like the number of open incidents versus revenue across your customers, so you can see how much revenue is at stake if you don't get those incidents resolved. Or you could take a look at the number of development stories that have been created for each customer and relate that back to the problem tickets that have been created for them. By combining data from these systems in one data lake, You get visibility like you've never had before without having to go through all of the usual challenges of setting up and configuring and maintaining a new on-premise data repository. The the other product that we built with AWS leverages their machine learning capabilities to add a layer of intelligence around service management. And like the on-demand data analytics product, intelligent incidents can be launched from the AWS Service Catalog. And on launch, we use your past incident data to train a machine learning model, which can then, within hours actually, start delivering recommendations back whenever a new incident is created. So based on whatever you have as your short description, intelligent incidents will suggest the right categorization, ensure the incident is assigned to the right team, that it's prioritized correctly. It can suggest related items, configuration items, and more. How often have you seen incident resolution delayed because an incident was assigned to the wrong team or because it was categorized incorrectly? Well, here's your chance to kind of fix all that. And that's not all. Because this is all working through the Perspectium integration mesh, once it's determined that an incident needs to be sent to another team, we can do that as well. So your incident that needs to be assigned to development can be automatically replicated into an e-bonded Jira issue and then kept in sync with the original incident as it's updated in Jira or ServiceNow. It's pretty cool. Paul, can you give us a look at what intelligent incidents actually look like?
So one thing they want to mention first is that, in partnership with Amazon, Amazon actually does have a service catalog connector app, scoped app for ServiceNow. That app actually connects it to their service catalog in AWS for those who have AWS accounts. Normally, you would log on to the AWS management portal and then use that portal to go through the service catalog there to request items. So with that connector app, it actually pulls all your catalog items from AWS into your ServiceNow instance, so you can actually request it from there. So we're leveraging that. I mean, it can work either way. So in this case, I'm going to show it working in ServiceNow. So what we've done is actually we have created our new portfolio of items you can purchase. In this case, as you see right here, it's Perspectium Service Intelligence. So whether it's for the intelligent incidents, which I'm going to demo, or the on-demand data analytics, you can actually request this through the service catalog. You enter the information you need to, for example, IAM access management key for Amazon to allow you to access S3 buckets and EC2 instances and so forth. But you enter the right information you need to, you can order it, and then you can go through the proper approval channels like you would by doing it in ServiceNow, where you need the IT team to approve it or some higher up person to approve it. But that's kind of the benefit of doing the service catalog approach through ServiceNow, is that you get all of ServiceNow's workflow. So in this case, normally you put the information here, you request that you want a new provision, new intelligent incidents, and what that means in that case is actually provisioning things in your Amazon account. So that includes our agent that will talk to your S3 bucket to take data and save it to the right spots. It includes the machine learning service that is hooked up to Amazon's machine learning service. We have our own machine learning service that takes information from, as Craig mentioned, ServiceNow, Jira, Salesforce, transformed it to the right format to be put into Amazon's machine learning service, so it understands how to properly predict and score and model data in order to give you accurate results, which is then passed back to our service, and our service then sends it back properly. So that's kind of idea. You go through here, you request it. I've already ordered one before just to kind of speed this up a little bit, because it does take about 5 to 10 minutes after you request it and it's been approved before it does all the provisioning in Amazon. So with that said, the next thing is I'm going to show the part where I create an incident. So in this case, say customer calls into me, I'm creating a new incident because they have an issue. In this case, I already have a template just to kind of quickly fill out the information. In this case, I'm saying that someone asked to increase the DB timeout because their database they know is timing out too quickly and they're not able to connect to do anything. So I'm going to submit this ticket, this incident, and then give it a second. The incident is going to send out to this provisioned intelligent incident application and everything we had set up through the service catalog I just showed earlier. Once it gets back, give it a second. It's actually based on the way I entered it. First, I, as a support engineer, thought it should belong to the platform support team. That was kind of my first inclinations that I believe they should work on it. However, sending it to our machine learning service, it came back to me and said, I really don't think that should be the platform support team. It really should be the DevOps team. The DevOps team is really the one who should be working on this. The category really shouldn't be an inquiry. It should be a database category. So I see the suggestions they gave me. I think about it. I'm like, that actually makes more sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to accept the DevOps suggestion. So once I accept the DevOps suggestion, it's actually going to update the original ticket itself. As you see right here, this ticket now is assigned to DevOps. So what that means, using our integration, is that the DevOps team, normally they prefer to work in Jira, because that's their system that they like to do everything. So now we're going to route the ticket over to Jira to say, hey, can you guys go ahead and update this DB timeout? So give this a second, because it goes through our system to get over there. And let's see if it's already over there. So, okay, so as you can see, the ticket's already over here. And this is my sample Jira project. It has the right group DevOps, it has the information we passed in ServiceNow, and it also has a ServiceNow identifier. We use a unique identifier, which is a SysID, to make sure that we have the right ticket. But this can be configurable. You can put whatever ticket you want on here. And now the DevOps person will work on this in here. Once they update it, it will send back to ServiceNow, and then the incident will be closed. So that's kind of the idea of our whole intelligent incidents. Not only do we suggest the right value, the right group to assign this to, but then we also route it so that particular group can then work on the ticket.
Very cool. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and I mean that demo, I love watching that demo, because and when we were showing people this at reInvent last week, they were pretty excited about the opportunities to sort of make their whole service management process more intelligent. We're starting off here with incidents, but we'll be able to extend that out to include changes and problems and even configuration items as we keep sort of moving through, and requests, to hopefully make that whole process a lot more intelligent. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what some customers do with that, quite frankly. The next area that we are going to cover is some new replication capabilities. And so let's launch into that, and we're going to start off by talking about the new group share. So the new group share functionality allows you to share out a combination of dynamic and bulk shares from one ServiceNow instance to another as a group. With group shares, you can easily schedule and execute shares without having to create each share record individually. Additionally, we now include built-in templates for common service management processes, allowing you to create your own custom templates to apply to multiple shares within the same group. This provides you with a multitude of options to custom manage and integrate your organization's service processes. A good example might be for a service provider that always goes through a similar process when they're onboarding a new customer. Rather than creating and executing individual bulk and dynamic shares, now they can bundle all of that together in a group share and execute it in one go. Paul, anything to add to that one?
Well, kind of what you mentioned, Craig. I mean, the idea is that for a lot of our customers, especially our service providers, as they onboard a new customer, their new customer uses ServiceNow as well. And then they have a bunch of tables that they generally will set up. That could be, they want to kind of seed the user table, the locations, groups, and they want to do all this, CMDB data. They want to do all these tables, and they kind of repeat the same process over and over again. So by using group shares, it's almost like you have a master record that acts as the starting point for all your dynamic bulk shares. So instead of having to go through and make 10 different dynamic shares, 10 different bulk shares, have to configure each of them with the target queue, with the cipher, is for this particular company, filter on this company, etc. This group share record will do all that for you. You create that one group share, it goes ahead and lays down the dynamic and bulk shares for you. Also supports the table compare feature to compare the tables between your instance and the other instance. So that's one use case. The other one, as you mentioned, is for analytics. If you're trying to replicate a set of tables for different instances or different organizations, different groups out all the time to be able to run reports on. A lot of times for our customers, they end up doing the same thing over and over again, and they have to kind of almost copy the dynamic, copy the bulk share, keep on doing that over and over. So instead, if they make a group share, make one template, they can just reuse that one over and over again, quickly, easily set this up. In a way, it provides a way to quickly set up things that you're doing kind of in a repetitious fashion without having to keep doing it over and over again that way.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you what, why don't I hand the screen back over to you, and maybe you can show us the group share.
So with the Europium release, we do have this group share feature. It's actually called out to its own separate section, as you can see right here. So first thing we'll do is create a new one. This actually will open up a record producer that allows you to give a name for the group share and make it easy for you to know what this section is about. Choose a target queue you want to use, kind of like how you would do it individually on each dynamic or bulk share. Then choose a cipher that you want to do as far as triple DES, AES 128, the ones that we normally support, plus the new AES 256 we'll talk about in a bit. And then you can set up what you want to do. Do you want to set up bulk shares? You want to set up dynamic shares? And when you choose these options, it actually adds other options related to it. For dynamic shares, do you want them to be active immediately? Meaning that once this is set up, all these dynamic shares are running, the business rules are created, and then the records can start be sharing out immediately, or do you want to actually take a look at it first? And if you want to, you can always go back to this screen and go back to this page, just master record and update it from here. For the bulk share, you can choose when you want to run. I mean, we will actually create a scheduled bulk share for you as well. If this is a type of setup you want to do to be sharing out data daily, weekly, or whatever you're trying to do. And then also a table compare feature. For those unfamiliar with table compare, it's a way for you to compare two ServiceNow instances to see the record counts between the two for the tables, and then actually tell you which records are missing based on sysid. So this instance has 10 records, the other one has 10 records, but say 8 of them are the same and 2 of them have different sysids. It actually will allow you to run that comparison and tell you what's the difference between the two. And then specify conditions, like kind of like we do with our conditional shares. You can actually specify that you want these bulk and dynamic shares to be filtered based on company. For domain separate instances, it also has the domain field, which on this instance I'm using right now is not. And then I have provided some templates for you, and then you can also create your own templates. These are some sample templates, that we provide for you: CMDB analytics, incident management, service catalog sync, and we're definitely open for if you have any suggestions on templates you want to provide us, and we'll be creating templates as we make new releases. But in this case, I'm going to choose the incident management template. What that template is kind of like the tables we seem to be common of what people do for incident management. So as you can see, all these tables are included here by default, and you can modify, change it as you want to. In this case, I'll submit it. I've decided to have a bulk share, dynamic share. I don't want the dynamic share to be active at this point. And once you submit this, give it a second, it's going to create all the dynamic bulk shares for you. And then we link to it from this master record right here. So if you go to the group share option, the module, you'll see the group share, and then you'll see all your dynamic bulk shares down at the bottom here in the related list. So you can actually look at them. You can change them as you need to. You can execute them. You can make a copy of this group share. Kind of like what we talked about. I made this group share. You can either do it through a template, or if you really just like this one again, you can just make a copy of it like the way we do with our bulk shares. And it gives you, one central place to manage all your dynamic and bulk shares versus having to go through and manage them in one spot, one by one.
That's great. We've had a couple of questions come in. One around group share, which I think you covered in the demo, but let's ask it just in case. Is it possible to schedule a group share to make sure that multiple bulk shares sort of go together?
Yeah. So the group share does have the schedule bulk share option with it, as you can see right here, it actually lists which scheduled bulk share is tied with this, and you can actually change the schedule for that scheduled bulk share to run. And with the scheduled bulk share, because I chose it as on demand, meaning that I'll just execute myself, the scheduled bulk share actually allows you to order your bulk shares which order you want. As you can notice, we just kind of default to an order based on when we create it, but you can actually specify the order in the scheduled bulk share for when these tables should run if you want one table to run before the other one.
Okay, great. Another question came in, actually reaching back to the AWS service intelligence we were talking about, specifically about the machine learning piece. How is the machine learning engine trained?
So it's actually trained by preceding data, and that's kind of what is set up as part of the service catalog request. When you make that request, we actually will send the data, using our bulk share capabilities, send that data from ServiceNow to our machine learning service, which is then used to train. We have a training service that gets spun up in your AWS account that would then connect to Amazon's account, to Amazon's AWS machine learning service that will actually use that data to train. So that's actually part of the service catalog setup when you request a new machine learning service, request that intelligent incident service.
All right, great, thank you. And just a reminder too, if you do have any questions, please pop them into that Q&A panel on the side of your screen, and we will try to get to those as we can. So yeah, keep the questions coming in. The next replication functionality we want to talk about is data guarantee. You might remember that we introduced this in our last release, but at that time it was just for ServiceNow to database. In Europium, this works from ServiceNow to any ecosystem endpoint. Data guarantee improves the reliability of messages leaving ServiceNow and going to any of those endpoints. This delivers better visibility to determine which messages are errors and to notify customers, as well as troubleshoot and recover from errors. So data guarantee includes record tracking for records received and processed by the subscribing application. It improves visibility of error records in the publishing ServiceNow instance. It provides some mechanisms for users to recover from errors, and it also provides troubleshooting mechanisms so that you can test to validate whether records are going to be successfully shared. I think for any customer moving thousands or even millions of transactions per day, this is going to be an invaluable piece of functionality, and it's part of Europium. Paul, anything you'd like to add to that?
As you mentioned, Craig, the main thing here we're talking about for Europium is any endpoint that we support. So right now by default with the new Europium release, when you send messages when you EBON ServiceNow with Sharewell, Remedy, etc., and we send the records out to our cloud service or our on-premise repeater agent, when they make that connection, when they try to attempt to send that record, that transaction to that particular endpoint, any other endpoint we have, a receipt, will be sent back to ServiceNow to say, okay, this was successful or this was failed. And if this failed, you have error, more details on what the error was. So you can actually see what was the problem, and do we need to resend that record, or what should we do from there? But that way, it provides a little bit more visibility, something that we definitely want to have for our customers in case there's issues e-bonding between ServiceNow and another endpoint.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. That's not all though. There are still a couple of other replication improvements in Europium. So let's take a look at those. First, we now support AES 256 encryption for ServiceNow to ServiceNow and ServiceNow to database. And this is a step up from the 128 encryption that we had previously, right, Paul?
Yep, it's a more enhanced, better version of AES. I mean, AES 256 is becoming more of a standard out there, so we want to make sure that we support this for our customers who have more stricter security requirements.
Yep, and Replicator can now read CSV files and share them out to any ecosystem endpoint too.
So in this case, some of you might already be using our Replicator functionality where we can share out data from a database. Like if you want to share that back to ServiceNow, maybe share it to another database or share it to Salesforce. So now we also support CSV files for those type of systems like Hadoop or other systems that can write out to a CSV file. You can have those changes then pushed to the rest of our ecosystem, to any endpoint we support, so that way it can be read into it. For our one particular customer, they had a use case where they were updating user records. They had a different system. They pushed it out to CSV files, and then before they were manually taking those CSV files and importing them into ServiceNow. So with our capabilities, they're using our replicator agent. It actually is automatically set to read those records, those CSV files, sends it over through our cloud service. It gets put into ServiceNow, and the records get created or updated, like we do with any of our integrations.
All right, that's very cool. All right, so with that, let's move on and take a look then at the last of the themes for the Europium release, which is our new Salesforce application. So the Salesforce Lightning interface is a collection of tools and technologies behind a significant upgrade to the Salesforce platform. Lightning includes a set of modern user interfaces optimized for speed. So it's kind of like when ServiceNow introduced their new UI alternative a few years back. What was that? UI 11, UI 12, something like that. Yeah. So the difference is that applications actually need to be rebuilt to work on Lightning, and that is exactly what we did in Europium. So the user experience with Salesforce has been dramatically updated. Paul, how about you give us a look at that new interface?
For our Lightning application, everything has been kind of redone to have the look and feel. Right now, you're kind of looking at our classic version of our app, and if we didn't have it working in Lightning, it would still kind of look pretty much the same. But since we've updated, it is backwards compatible for people who don't want to move to Lightning, because I have heard from a lot of Salesforce users, they're not particularly fond of Lightning just yet, and they're going to wait till they're forced to move. But in this case, the app works with both. So if I switch over to the Lightning experience, you'll see that the app now has the exact look and feel and works, and it does load a little bit faster in Lightning. It has the whole Lightning experience. So for example, if I was trying to troubleshoot an issue, I want to see what's going on. If you know it's in Lightning, when you pop up the window, it pops up like this. It has a much cleaner, depending on how you look at it, cleaner look and feel for the application. So that's, we want to make sure our application was compatible with Lightning, and that we could say ourselves that we are Lightning enabled. And like I said, the whole app has been kind of reskinned to work with Lightning while still maintaining the backwards compatibility with the classic experience for people who do not want to move over to Lightning at this time.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it looks cool. All right. Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah. So if you're currently using the Salesforce agent, then you can move to this model, or if you're not using it yet and you've got Salesforce in your organization, maybe this is something you could think about, and that way you can build that customer service side into your service management processes. I guess we've covered the four main themes of the Europium release, but there's a few other things that we did as well, and we'll just step through these really quickly. But first of all, bulk shares can now be executed via scripting. So the new Perspectium bulk share object provides a way to access the bulk share configuration record and make changes to it in server-side JavaScript.
So in that case, what we're doing there is the fact that we have had requests from customers that instead of having to create the bulk share through the UI like they normally do, they want to be able to run and execute bulk share themselves from their own code, meaning that they might have their own workflow steps that when someone approves this, go ahead and execute the bulk share, or they want to put in, they want to have their own business rule or whatnot. So we do have that capability now that you can actually run your bulk share. We have it documented on our wiki. There's an API at the calls. It passes the necessary parameters, and the bulk share will be all executed through scripting versus having to do it through a UI.
Excellent. For domain-separated ServiceNow instances, dynamic shares can now be executed within a specified domain. This one's pretty self-explanatory, right, Paul?
Yeah, for people who that actually for our domain separated customer, our MSPs and so forth, a lot of them, a lot of times they'll create their business rules. They'll kind of forget that the business rule, it was created based on the domain they're currently working on. So with this feature, you can actually specify on the dynamic share, this business rule belongs to this particular domain. So that way, whenever you update the record, you'll still save it properly in the right domain. We've had problems where someone was working in the global domain. They accidentally were modifying the dynamic share for, say, company Acme, then they saved it. It saved it to the global domain. So now it's shared out records to everyone. So this kind of helps prevent that.
All right. We've also added the ability to have read-only role access for the Perspectium ServiceNow application. So we added a read-only role for our app for those customers who want to give some of their personnel access to view the Perspectium configurations without changing them, because otherwise it's wide open for anyone with an admin role, right, Paul?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and then we've got the load test option, which creates a load test queue that can be monitored to gauge the impact of shares on an instance. And the idea there is that it lets you determine the approximate time it's going to take for your bulk share to reach the Perspectium message broker service.
And another thing also it helps is that for customers who are kind of want to test the impact of performance on their instance, because say they want to do a bulk share of millions of records and they're just curious how long it would take and if there's any impact at all in their instance, this kind of allows you to do without actually sharing it out to our cloud service.
Right. And I know also, Paul, some customers requested MySQL 8 support for the replicator agent.
So MySQL 8, it actually, it came out earlier this year. The thing with MySQL 8 is that it's actually was a pretty substantial change from MySQL, because the previous version of MySQL was 5.7. So they pretty much just skipped 6 and 7, went to 8 this time. But as a result of that, it was a lot of changes to MySQL itself, to the engine itself, and the way applications can connect to it and save data to it. So that's why we had to spend a little bit of time to get that to work. But it does work now, and it still, our agent will still be backwards compatible using the new MySQL 8 support. So if you don't want to upgrade to MySQL 8, because I know a lot of other people don't want to upgrade it just because of the known the differences and compatibility issues. But if you're ready to upgrade, ready to go up to MySQL 8, we support you. Well, it supports it now in the replicator agent, and it's still backwards compatible, as I mentioned.
Yeah, great. I know that we also fixed 21 bugs in this release, continuing our quality initiative. And there is some other improvements as well in Europium. So at the end of the webinar, I'll point you to the wiki. That's where you can see absolutely everything that went into the Europium release, including new functionality and enhancements and fixes as well. One question that came in from one of our European customers was around data obfuscation, wondering if there was any improvement or changes in that in this release.
So the data obfuscation feature remains the same as it was before. If you have any suggestions, feedback, definitely, feel free to send us our way. I mean, we are always looking to hear if there's any, changes you would like in there, but no new functionality as of right now.
All right. Great. So for the most part, that is the Europium release. Let's just recap those themes. Of course, we talked about the new and enhanced endpoints for Freshservice and Freshdesk, and also for Splunk and for Surewell. We talked about the service intelligence offerings with AWS, some of those new replication capabilities, and of course the new Salesforce application, along with some of the other things that we covered off there. Of course, we couldn't have done any of this without you, our customers. And so a special thank you to each of these customers who directly contributed to the Europium release. Your enhancement requests and feedback, as Paul said, they're what help us make the product even better. So thank you, not only for being our customers, but for helping us create the best integration mesh for service management that there is. And so the question then is, how do you get your hands on Europium? Like this, you request it via the customer portal service catalog. In fact, you probably have already received an email telling you exactly how to get the new release, because it is available now. But if you haven't received that, you can just request it via the service catalog, and you can access that via the top right-hand corner of our website. Just click on support, and then you'll see the customer portal there. You also see documentation there, and that is where you will click to get complete details on all that new functionality from our wiki. So they're two sort of places that you should go following this particular webinar, so that you can sort of learn more about Europium. Of course, a release webinar wouldn't be the same without our old friend Chemistry Cat and his bad joke about Europium. But thank you to Paul and the whole Perspective team for your contributions to the webinar this morning and for making Europium a reality. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar was recorded, and we will be making the recording available to you in the next couple of days. Just keep an eye out for an email from us containing the link. And if you have any follow-on questions, please feel free to email us at support@perspective.com, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. We'll speak to you again at our next webinar, and thank you for joining us.